and welcoming into a classroom took that away from them, on behalf of all of them, I urge a no vote.
Thank you. Are there further remarks? Representative McCaslin.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think we have some very good scientifically based anti-bullying curriculum in our K-12 schools. And I think that has risen to a whole other level, which is really effective. And do we ever want to stop teaching that? Absolutely not. And this is not about not talking or accepting people from all different kinds of backgrounds, all different kinds of different arenas. What this does is if we're talking, because sexual education, we're talking about scientific fact. And so I think it's important to make sure that if we can't find adequate, peer-reviewed information on any sexual subject, I'm not just talking about gender theory, I'm talking about all different kinds of arenas. We have a high standard of what we teach in schools, and I think this is not at all prohibiting talking about accepting and loving others, because that's the basis of what we should be doing in schools. So I hope I'm being very clear as to what the intention is with this amendment, and I urge its adoption. Thank you.
The chair urges a no vote, and I want to thank the good gentleman from the 6th Board for your remarks, because I do know and respect and understand that the intention that you are trying to share with us. But I regret that I believe your good intention is actually going to be undermined by this amendment. In fact, if we want to create the kind of welcoming, loving environment where all students can bring their full selves into the classroom, then we have to be able to have instruction and materials and curricula that recognize them. I also want to note that this very sensitive material has to be taught and provided by a certificated teacher, a teacher who is certificated in this particular subject, or someone who is trained to teach comprehensive sexual health. And so while appreciating the spirit that the good gentleman is offering, I would simply suggest that his very good intent and meaning is not going to be realized if this amendment is accepted. Are there further remarks? Seeing none, all those in favor of the amendment, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please indicate by saying nay.
No.
Nay. The motion fails. Are there further amendments? There are. The amendment on page 4, line 34, identified as MOAT 158, has been withdrawn. Are there further amendments? There are. Representative Corey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move adoption of amendment MOAT 157.
The motion is the adoption of the amendment on page 4, line 34 of the striking amendment, also known as MOAT 157. Are there remarks? Representative Corey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So what the intention of this amendment is, it's designed to help prevent exposure to sexually explicit images. One of the concerns from some of the curriculum that has been shared potential to this would be including homework around researching things on the internet that could potentially lead to sexually explicit images. Additionally, those images not necessarily related to what we're trying to get at or what the homework was trying to search for. There's also the underlying effect of when you search for these things, that can follow you in terms of ads and ad tracking. And it could expose our kids to some really bad things on the internet that I know we all in this committee want to prevent them from being exposed to. So I would urge an adoption of this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further remarks? Representative Stonier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm asking for a no vote on this amendment, not because I disagree with the good gentleman, but because getting this prescriptive on what can and cannot be searched for on the internet is not really the purview of our work as a legislature necessarily. We could probably come up with a very long list of things we would like to not have our kids search for on the internet. But we are just not in a position to be that directive. We trust the decision makers at the local level and educators to create lessons that are age appropriate, that are safe for kids to do. And we also know that if something does happen and parents call in and want to know what's going on, that's how the local control level of school boards and school buildings start to review again their internet safety policies. They take a look at the filters. We have a lot of things in place in our districts and in our schools to help get to the core of the intent of this amendment. But getting so prescriptive as to what can and cannot happen in instruction really limits the ability for our educators to serve our kids well, our diverse students well. So I'm going to ask for a no vote in trusting our educators and our local decision makers to teach this appropriately. Thank you.
Are there further remarks? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please indicate by saying nay.
No.
The motion fails. Are there further amendments? There are. Representative Caldier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I move MOIT 140.
It has been moved and seconded that the amendment on page 4, line 38 of the striking amendment, also identified as MOIT 140, be adopted. Are there remarks? Representative Caldier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. One of the other concerns that I've heard from parents after they've read the curriculum is the role playing that some of the curriculum has. And this amendment would, eliminate the role playing, because I think that you can teach children how to interact with others in a healthy way without doing role playing. And at the end of the day, we need to listen to the public, so I urge your support.
Thank you. Are there further remarks? Representative Dolan.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Role-playing is actually one of the best teaching techniques we have for our little people, for our bigger students, and for all of us as adults. I actually can't imagine being able to teach this curriculum or any other curriculum without having a way to get the students actively engaged in the curriculum itself, and role-playing is a great way to do that. When I was a first grade teacher, we role-played how to be a good friend. We role-played how to say no if your friend was asking you to do something that you knew you shouldn't do and might get you in trouble. I'm going to go back to how hard it is to get kids to bring those field trip slips back with opting into a field trip. I even role-played as they were leaving my classroom every day. I'd have them one by one tell me what they were going to say to their parent that night when they handed them that permission slip. I want to go to the zoo, I need you to sign this, and I'd make everyone say that to me, because then I knew that they would probably remember to bring that slip back the next day. So I can't imagine teaching any content without the ability to role play. So unfortunately, for that reason, I'm going to ask for a no on this amendment.
Thank you. Are there further remarks? Representative Caldier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So, it's one thing to role play whether or not, you're gonna get your parent to sign a permission slip to go to the field trip, and to role play sexual education. When I was in school and they taught sex ed, we never did role playing. I felt like I learned the material. I felt like I learned what my body was doing as it was developing. And we didn't need to do role playing. With all my daughters are gorgeous, and I've always said, I was always very worried about sexual predator because I was sexually abused when I was younger. I was also very concerned that they might get pregnant because I was pregnant when I was 19. And, I taught them, how to interact with guys on a date and what to say, what not to say, that, even if you are in a healthy relationship, men can't read women's minds, and you need to communicate. And those are things that you can teach children without having to do role play. I think it's very possible to do that without the role play, so I urge your support.
Thank you. Are there further remarks? Representative Stonier. Pardon me.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Stepped away for a little water. Asking for a no vote, I understand the intent of the amendment here, but I also know that teachers need to have the wide array of strategies to teach all content. And it's not necessarily the role of us as a legislator to tell teachers how they can and cannot teach. This amendment restricts one of the teachers from having access to one of those tools, and we just want to make sure that we are not so restrictive that teachers don't have the appropriate array of strategies for teaching our diverse students who all may need different strategies. The good representative may not have needed this one, but there are students that may. And as teachers, our job is to make sure that each student has access to information and has the opportunity to learn in a way that works for them. And so I'm going to ask for a no vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there further remarks? Representative Corey.
Thank you, Madam Chair. With your permission, I'd like to read a little bit of role playing from a curriculum that's used in Seattle and Kings County. I will keep it brief and germane.
Representative Corey, are you certain that this role playing actually is implemented?
Yes,
rather
it's
than
actually, it's copyright by Public Health Seattle and King County. And
please proceed.
this is from the flash curriculum that's been adopted. So this is one example of role playing I think really addresses to the concerns of Representative Caldier. So this is between two juniors in high school, and this is the conversation. Stacey, I can't believe you haven't had sex with Brooklyn yet. I don't know why you're waiting. You should just do it. And then Grace is supposed to respond in a manner that does not put down Stacia for having sex. You better rethink that before she finds someone else. You should have sex with her. And you're supposed to have a student respond, and Stacy would then say, oh, come on, you keep saying you're in love with her. I don't think that's right. I think that this is encouraging sexual behavior rather than trying to get at a medically accurate safe sex standard that we were trying to teach. So by saying we're not going to allow this type of role playing, I think we're protecting kids. I can't imagine being a 16-year-old having to have these conversations in front of a class. So I would urge a yes to this amendment to help protect our children.
Are there further remarks? Representative Ortiz-Hill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We use role playing in so many different ways, and I want to tie it back to the fact that we go through developmentally appropriate role playing techniques. I teach a lot of social emotional learning in our schools, and we make sure that this curriculum K through 3 is all social emotional learning. We role play so many different areas, and I don't think we can separate what we do in the social emotional learning that's part of a comprehensive health plan. Teaching boundaries and safe touch and how to be a friend and what's appropriate and respectful behavior is part of a comprehensive sexual health plan. So if we remove role playing from this in the K to 3 grades where we're doing the social emotional learning as the foundation for this plan, we would be eliminating this. And I think it's one of the critical tools that we have. So I urge a no vote.
Are there further remarks? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion, please indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, please indicate by saying nay.
No.
Motion fails. Are there further amendments? The amendment on page 4, line 38, also identified as